Hey guys, it's Mike from Flock Eventing Platform. Super excited to be showcasing how you can take your events to another level by elevating your events through virtual backdrops, as well as having some cool ideas and thinking creatively about hosting your online events. So you can have different backdrops, you can zoom in speakers from all around the world. We're going to be joined by my colleague Kelly, who's down in Cape Town. So let's beam up Kelly. Hey Kelly, how's it going?
Great. Hi there, Mike. Thanks for having me in the virtual studio. This is awesome.
Yeah, awesome. So Kelly, maybe just for our audience, how have you seen the events industry adapt in these past few weeks?
Yeah, great. I mean, certainly in the last month or two, it's been with all the changes going on in the world, it's certainly been a time for innovation and creativity. Everything that was planned has either now been postponed or cancelled, and yeah, people are still looking, to put something on during this time, and many of them are not exactly sure how to go about that. It's been certainly a learning curve for us, and yeah, we've been more than happy to share our knowledge with the industry as well. And yeah, just with what was planned before, with a bit of creativity and maybe a few tweaks to how those events were run previously, and with some new technology and components, we're actually able now to still put on events, during this time, and at least for the foreseeable future as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that, Kelly. So we'll be catching up with you a little bit later, but fantastic. Thank you so much. We'll say goodbye to you.
Great, thank you.
Awesome, guys. So when you're thinking about hosting your events online and the various backdrops, you can really think out of this world if you wanted to, from an office all the way to essentially being on the moon. So really thinking about your events and the backdrops relevant to the message you're trying to get through to your audience. If you were on the streets of New York and Times Square, you would essentially come through and all the way to Tokyo. You can really take your audience to a whole new experience where you can have your backdrop with your branding, or you could be in your offices. It's really entirely up to you as to how you host your virtual event and have the backdrop. Guys, super excited to have you join our webinar today. It's going to be really, really exciting. We've got an amazing guest speaker. His name is Michael Jackson. For those of you that don't know him, he's been at over 4,000 events internationally. So a household name when it comes to conferences and events. We're really going to be engaging with you today as well. So we're going to be talking about life after lockdown with Michael Jackson. That's coming up a little bit later. In the meantime, let's go through a little bit of housekeeping as we usually do with these webinars. We've got the chat box, which you can chat to us and the team. We've got the Flock team managing things in the background, answering your questions, really just engaging with you. So please do feel free to engage with us in the chat functionality, as well as the live polls. We're going to be running a couple of live polls. So yes, we've also got some awesome prizes to give away to the most engaged person. We're giving away a 1,000 Rand spa voucher, and that's all the way from Blue Water Bay Spa in Port Elizabeth. And we're also giving a 500 Rand donation to a charity of the winner's choice. So please do engage with us to win these awesome prizes. The winner will be announced at the end of this webinar. We're also giving away a voucher from All About Food. They deliver some awesome virtual event catering and goodie bags. So please do look out for All About Food in terms of their virtual event catering. We're going to give away a 500 Rand meal voucher as well as a donation. Cool, we're going to be running a quick poll. So if you can please engage in the live poll, look at the bottom of the toolbar and you'll see the question pop up. So please do engage with us, and we'll be sharing those results with you as well. All right, we've got some stats that the Event Manager blog have put together. That's for about 2,000 event organizers globally that have been surveyed, and you can see the amount of impact that this pandemic has had on the events industry, with over 90% of business being affected. You can also see that the virtual event planning is a new space for a lot of people, with 64% saying they haven't had a virtual event before, but they are willing to learn. And we've seen that in the past few weeks, that people have just really adapted so well, and they've hosted virtual events. Another topic is, how do you host, or charge rather, for your virtual events, with about 75% of people saying they don't charge. So we'll be talking to you about how you can monetize through brand sponsorship, brand placement, charging for your sales for your events as well. Cool, so another quick poll. If you can please take part in the live poll at the bottom of the toolbar. We'll be sharing those results with you. And then just a little brief background for those of you that don't know who Flock is. Flock is the ultimate tool for event planners. We provide a platform for you to be able to build event websites, custom branded mobile apps, manage your RSVPs and attendance. You can also send out communication and really engage with your audience. You can also host online events and then get all the analytics and metrics that you need to see how your event did. We've also got a virtual events playbook that we're going to be sharing with you. It's packed full with hints and tips as to how to host your virtual event online. So please do look out for that virtual events playbook. Awesome, thank you very much. We'll go through to our next speaker, and that's all from us for now. Thank you very much.
To take things to a next level. So fantastic to have you all here. Yeah, how have you felt, guys? Give me a few emojis in the chat box over there. We love hearing from you, especially in the emojis. Awesome. Cool, guys. Some dancing emojis, some happy emojis, so much better. Awesome, thank you for that. Yes, and this is maybe just an example of, you know, sometimes things can go wrong on a virtual event, but that's okay as long as your audience is fine, you've got backup plan, and you've got to try new things at the end of the day. Thank you so much for that, Robot Brad. Hadkey, yeah, it's great. Irene, the winner from our last event, great to see you here again. Same as you, Ernest. Really, really good. And I think that's the nature of events. We're always trying to take it to the next level and working within the platforms that we can. So with that, I'm going to look for our esteemed guest, Michael Jackson. Give me a moment while I look for him on the guest list. And he's going to be joining us and talking about life after lockdown. I think it's a topic many of us would like to hear. Hey, Michael, how's it going?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. What an absolute pleasure to be with you. I thought somebody was flushing the loo there, Mike, on that sound in the back. I was just checking my guest bathroom next door to me. I'm in my dining room at home and made sure it wasn't anybody that was in my house. Would have been a burglar if it was. And it's great to be with you. Borbette, by the way, I'm sorry I'm not the other Michael Jackson. This is the other Michael Jackson, not the one you were thinking of. He's dead, Borbette. I mean, you've got to realize that. And I know it's hard to tell the difference between him and I, except there's one sure way of doing it, and that's when you know me, it looks like I've eaten the rest of the Jackson 5. So there you are. There you have it, Borbette. Good to be with you all.
You're looking good despite lockdown. You know, I'm growing some lockdown love handles of my own, but I think you're looking great. You must be doing some virtual workouts there. Maybe you're taking part in that Fun Fit Fest.
Trying very hard, Mike, but you know how it is. It's hard. Somewhere between the fridge and the outside garden, there's a solution somewhere. I'm not sure. Sure. Good to be with you, though.
Borbette was asking if you're still doing the moonwalk. Maybe that's also getting the movement going.
Only when I slide down the stairs when I'm drinking the last of my red wine, Borbette. But we can make a plan.
Cool. So really excited as our audience are to hear what you have in store for us. I'll leave it over to you, and then there'll be a 5-minute to 10-minute Q&A after your presentation for anyone who has any questions.
Cool. Thank you very much indeed. And I'm very happy to take comments and questions afterwards as well. So Tandy's saying she can't see me anymore. Are you the only one? You should be able to see my slide deck now, Tandy, and me in the little box in the corner, which is where my wife says is the best place for me. You know, as Kelly said this morning, you know, as he kicked off this afternoon, I should say, innovation and creativity is going to be a way forward. And I think that's going to be absolutely critical. So I'm going to talk a little bit, 15 or 20 minutes or so, about innovative thinking, you and your business beyond this coronavirus into the end of 2020 and beyond. And then we can take questions about eventing. We can take questions about anything that's on your mind at all. So I don't have a problem with, you know, answering whatever questions you have. I'm prepared to stay online for as long as you'd like to. I'm yours for the afternoon, although presenting, as I say, for about 15 minutes or so. So taking your business beyond 2020. I was on a webinar call the other day with Seth Godin and talking about the future. And, you know, Seth, obviously a well-known multinational author, multi-million copy author, or selling author as well. We were talking about the future, and one of the things that he said that really intrigued me was 2021 is coming, whether you like it or not, whether you're ready for it or not. It doesn't care. As much as 2020 arrived now, this is the situation that we find ourselves in. And what we need to understand is once this scenario changes, and it might only be the middle of 2021 when we start getting access to a vaccine for the virus, we've got to start thinking about where we are and where our business is going to try and beat the system that's in our space at the moment. So we know that, you know, come last year, 2019, as we had New Year's Eve, you know, we were all partying it up and getting ready for the decade of plenty, 2020. I mean, 2020 has always been the way that science fiction has projected the future. You know, we expected flying cars, we expected a whole bunch of things. You know, we wanted what we expected because in our lifetime, we've lived up to this, expecting more of a tech-smart, seamless, better planet that literally awaited us all. And we've known in our lifetimes, change has come at us faster and faster and faster. It'll be 51 years this year since man first landed on the moon. We've seen change happening almost decade by decade since that happened. You know, in the 1970s, we got personal computing. Into the 80s, we got communication with mobile phones. Into the 90s, we got Wi-Fi, which enables us to do what we're doing today on this platform. And right now, you know, we've seen the start of the new century being an era of collaboration, and then in the last 10 years in particular, an era of convergence, allowing everyone to communicate with everyone else wherever they are. It's an amazing thing. If you think about there's 6,500 languages on the planet's surface, but in every single city in the world, it is theoretically possible for you to get from one city to any city that you care to name right now within 24 hours, assuming, of course, the borders are open in a non-corona scenario. It's a really weird thing, and as Cornet says, a sci-fi movie written by Stephen King and probably, Cornet, directed by Quentin Tarantino. But you see, what we've got to understand is the way that the world has changed has been quite dramatic. And whilst we think we've been aware of a number of things that have changed around the world, we've actually ignored that the whole pendulum around our planet has swung literally from west to east. And in our lifetime, although some of us have noticed it, but many haven't, we've seen the new dominance emerge on the planet's surface of the new Asian region in its own particular regard. And it's quite weird that 63% of global growth is coming out of the Asian region. We understand the influence of China. But, you know, we in this part of the world are looking at an awful lot of Western influence. You know, even our president was talking about colonial influences from the other day. We've always been driven by the West in terms of development into Africa. And it's weird when you look West, because even with Donald himself going crazy in the States, the USA in our lifetime is now only responsible for 11% of global growth. It's declined on a global stage while the Asian region has taken over very strongly indeed. And right now, in fact, you know, you can look at Europe with or without Britain, with a Brexit scenario. Europe is only responsible for 4% of global growth. So we didn't notice all of that pendulum swing. And in a large extent, we're expecting business as usual to take place. And we failed, every single human failed to predict the future. We'd seen some flashpoints though. We'd seen a few trends that were emerging. Politics was becoming more polarized. Globalization, a 65-year-old concept, is now literally in serious trouble as countries look to self-isolate and develop their own areas of interest for themselves, even though they can take resources from and use other parts of the world. The other big flashpoint for us, I guess, has been trade patterns. We see the American trade war with China. We're about to see a stronger one with India, where America's trying to correct what it sees as the declining balance of trade that it's getting out versus what it's having to bring in. And there might even be a trade war coming up between America and Europe, although there's a hint of a strong ally between the USA and Great Britain. Not that Britain's that influential anymore by any means on the world stage. We're also seeing the flashpoint of immigration and people beginning to matter in different ways. You know, we've been through that trend of no immigrants, please, in my backyard. We've even seen that in South Africa, of course, with xenophobic attacks. And more recent events, I guess, around the Floyd scenario and the worldwide protests are seeing people stand up more as becoming a lot more individual for themselves and their areas. And the other big thing, of course, that we argued about in a flashpoint term was the amount of plastic and pollution in our world's oceans and how much we're possibly destroying the world's environment. There is, of course, no planet B, as we know. So that's what's been going on, and yet we fail to notice an awful lot of this stuff. We're bound as humans by regular familiar patterns and practices. We often find ourselves living in a routine. And, you know, there might be a few of you longing to get back into the routine of traffic jams, but I don't think we need to in any sense. You know, what worries me about traffic when we were in it before the lockdown is that everyone got stuck in traffic and everybody moaned about traffic without realizing, of course, you are the traffic, if that's the case. We're creatures of habit as humans, and we find it hard to change. So when change happens drastically, wow, it surprises us to a great deal. And yet it shouldn't do. Even 100 years ago, Vladimir Lenin said this. Now, if you're not fluent in Russian, I'll translate it for you, because it is rare to hear in any form of webinar at the moment a bit of Vladimir Lenin being quoted in a business context. But I think he actually said this, which made an awful lot of sense. There are decades when nothing happens and weeks when decades happen. And boy, everything has changed instantly for us. Our response to it, the normal negative response to the human curve. We have ignorance about it, first of all, largely followed after that surprise or ignorance by disbelief, a sense of uncertainty, of confusion and anxiety. And what happened was governments, as much as everybody else, froze the minute coronavirus came out towards the end of 2019 in the Wuhan scenario. Lockdown. We took, you know, the choice of fight, flight, or freeze, which is the normal response to anxiety. Everybody froze. 2 billion people like ourselves were immediately placed down into some form of quarantine. We'd never seen this stuff before. And of course, our work lives, our routines were disrupted. Our lockdowns have irritated people beyond all else. Social media is going crazy with it at the moment. We don't know who to trust. So it seems to be, it has to be science rather than governments at the moment. And of course, business leadership, which is something we've all got to consider. As a leader of a business, or indeed as a player in a business, an employee in a business, leadership has all but disappeared. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. I mentioned that change curve to you, though. And whenever you want change happening, going from A through to B, you know, we got taught this at kindergarten, those of us who were still allowed to go to school, that, you know, change happens in a straight line. So we want to go from virus through to vaccine, which should be a little bit higher up. But in fact, the length of that time right now between virus and vaccine is almost tripled by the amount of time we spend as humans on the curve. This is a classical change curve. It's known as the Kubler-Ross Curve. It was originally designed as a curve of grief. You know, if somebody dies, sadly, and your family passes away, whatever change happens, the initial response is that ignorance, denial, surprise, largely followed as we slip down this curve into the storms that are raging, a bit like it's raining and pouring down in Cape Town at the moment right now. Anger is the natural follow-on from denial, closely followed by fear. And it's all the negative emotions that drag us downwards before your brain can't think of anything more that's negative, that then asks you to get into some form of acceptance. The reason the human brain does that is we've evolved that way. We're in a situation where your brain wants to know, will it be safe before I try it? And it throws all the negativity out at you first and foremost, which we'll, for the sake of this, call the denial, the anger, and the fear. And by the way, this isn't a linear curve, because some things can happen. The cigarette ban can be reversed, and you're moving through the curve, but then all of a sudden you go back again and you're on it like a child's swing, if you will, in a park. Only after acceptance do we see the storm break. A little bit of progress after hope, and then belief when we're all finally on the same page. But what you've got to realize, folks, is that length of curve that you've gone through is taking you 3 times longer than a vaccine will. And it's crazy. We've got to start thinking about doing things differently. I said that science was called in. You know, normally in a situation of turmoil, you call in one form of expert or another. The thing about scientists, though, in this particular case, or any expert for that matter, is there are 2 types of scientists. There are 2 types of experts. There are those who don't know, and then there are those who don't know that they don't know. And we're following this stuff blind because no one has ever seen anything like this before. You know, it's said statistically, and you always get lies, damned lies, and statistics, that you could actually take a chimpanzee and put a dart into its hand and ask the creature to throw the dart at a dartboard and hit the bullseye, and it has as much chance of getting it right as any of the so-called experts do in terms of their predictions. So what do we do? How do we understand it? You know, we've been told to expect a lot of negativity, the worst recession since the 1930s. 200 million jobs will be lost around the world, and literally 1.2 billion other humans, as a result of all of this change, are said to be at risk. We know that global trade will decrease by a minimum of 20% at the moment. And we've got to understand that that means fundamental change that we've got to be able to handle at some level. America, if it goes down at a median level, will be 3% lower or smaller than it was last year. Europe, 6%. Africa will be 7% down minimum. And the only area of growth, by the way, hey, surprise, surprise, it's going to be Asia once again. But instead of what was previously predicted before COVID at a 10% growth on their GDP, will slow to a 1.2% growth. Because of the strength of their market and what it is that they've done, it's going to be absolutely incredible. It means we have to think different and find a new formula for success. The old formula in our lifetime has gone back since the dawn of the Industrial Revolution. It's said in the past, take what you know from the past, modify it for your present, and that will give you a future. That's how the world has evolved slowly until the time frame that we find ourselves in now. But right now, there's got to be a new formula for success. And that says it doesn't matter about our past. It certainly doesn't matter about the present. What matters is the point of difference. Irene Costa's just made that comment, the point of difference that's going to give us a sense of our future. We need to be unique coming out of this in terms of what we do, because all the previous patterns that we've lived with previously have disappeared and gone forever. Now, if you look at the shape of what business really needs to be holistic and whole, there's a complete document here. Now, if you're taking notes on this, because we're going quite quickly, by the way, I'm going to give you my email address at the end. I'm happy to share all these slides with you. So for those of you photographing the screen or taking notes, just suddenly occurred to me. Let's understand what business was like before Corona. Here's the average, I guess, in terms of where it is. Businesses were over-administrated. They were over-managed, and they were pretty poor at communications. Collaboration, which is the big talk that happened for a few years before COVID, Collaboration was just a buzzword. Nobody in business was really collaborating in any sense at all. And in fact, when you look at the COVID adverts right now, I posted something on my YouTube channel the other day about an American guy who'd put together a cluster of all COVID adverts. He just cut together all the major brands, and they all said exactly the same thing. We're with you. We know that you're missing us. We're going to come back stronger. We care about you, blah, blah, blah. We were pretty poor at the whole damn thing. When in fact, what the world wanted and what business was striving to get towards was more of collaboration, relationships, customer experience delivered like we're delivering this webinar today through technology. And we talked about artificial intelligence coming up and creeping up as well. So there's this V sign where there's this major difference. And people are talking about a V-shaped recovery in an economic sense. Listen, we've got a V-shaped recovery that we need to plan in a business sense, because most businesses are a long, long way away from what humans want. They were before, and they are right now, and they will be afterwards. And they are the ones who are going to be most at risk. So when I say do things differently, what do I mean? I've studied change all of my working life. I know that we need to drive communication. We have to engage people better. We need to refocus by an understanding of priorities. It's not about you and your business. It's about your customer and what they could expect from your business. We need to align our activities around a full understanding of what people ultimately want. And we've got to adapt our businesses to develop some really cool best practices that work from a customer perspective, not from your perspective. Nobody cares about your business. 2021 is coming, whether we like it or not. If you're going to win, if you're going to succeed, you're going to have to drive to implement a new level of delivery. And it's almost like business got more complicated. Before COVID, it was a battle. You had a company, it had customers and staff and suppliers and partners. It had a mix of technology, and it was talking about partnerships and collaboration. Most of them were untrue. They weren't real partnerships. What we need to move into for the rest of 2020 and beyond is a newfound sense of agility by understanding that people are more connected. They're more empowered right now. They're more agile. They're more engaged than they ever were before. And the way that they get their message across is through connected things. More instantly available, more instant and more secure things. Agility is going to have to be a watchword of what we require. And that comes from leadership, having the courage to change your focus and do new things at new levels. And there's no excuse for it now. We've always said, no, it's bureaucracy, it's red tape, it's the stuff that binds our wrists and ties us down. Wow. Well, we've seen already how red tape and bureaucracy can be eliminated as soon as the virus spread. Even our government in South Africa, to a large extent, has eliminated a lot of bureaucracy and red tape. Everybody's done it all over the world. And what that means is right now, we've got to do the same thing on a business leadership platform. We've got to be purpose-driven. We've got to be focused. It needs to be developed, shaped, and communicated to get it out to the right level of the marketplace overall. It's urgent and it's important. And that's something that as humans, we don't understand terribly well. Let me just give you a brief example as I wrap up on this talk of the difference between urgent and important. If you take the axis going urgent from 0 to 100 going up, and then the axis going across from 0 to 100 of important, some things will be in the right-hand quadrant. They're going to be urgent and important. And I'm going to tell you that what we need to do is learn in those areas. Now, when you've dealt with highly urgent and highly important things, you move down. So what's important but less urgent? Well, looking for a solution. I'll explain this to you in a second. Then urgent but not so important, things we have to live with and the way we behave. And then neither urgent nor important in the bottom left quadrant are things that we have to let go. So what should we be learning urgently and importantly about people, about customers, about partners? Because they're going to be the future success of your business. There's 150 million businesses out there. A couple of million will be impacted dramatically by this. It doesn't mean that your product or your service becomes more exclusive, that more successful. What it means is those businesses who are going to be successful are the ones who understand their people, their customers, and their partners. And when you do that first, then you can look for ideas, for opportunities, for growth. And the way we need to live, of course, we know those things, our morals, our ethics, and our values. But what do we need to leave behind? Neither urgent nor important. The negativity, the doubt, and the routine. We do the same things every day that we've always done. In many ways, lockdown has been a welcome surprise for many of us because it shattered those routines. It's proven that we can do stuff differently. And look how we all floundered around for a little while, panicking, until we start to settle down and find a way to move forward. We've got to stop waking up every morning with routine, with habits, and with the regular negativity that we express, and reverse that process. We've got to lead. And to do that, we need to talk to people. And I think conversational design is absolutely crucial. I call this leadership through communication, where you start to map the journey, you shape the message, you package the content because you've listened to the people who are there. You deliver it with impact. You engage the feedback loop, and then you make the whole process work like a wheel that turns continuously. And that's continuous improvement. But we've got to start with ourselves. We need to get out there and understand that it's about people, not us. We need to co-create and communicate and then develop a unique formula with the right target markets. It's people and empathy and leadership driven. If you're going to generate trust and get people to buy in to your vision, you need to be connected. You need to be conversive, talking to people. You need to be supportive of ideas, of people and new behaviors, because those are the prerequisites for modern success. It's about thinking and acting and behaving very, very differently indeed. And we collaborate with everybody. And that's what I wanted to share with you during this webinar. I hope you can see that on the slide. It's theothermichaeljackson.com. And my email is quite simple, michael@theothermichaeljackson.com. So I'll type that into the crowd share thing in just a moment as well, the sharing as well. That was an abbreviated version of this, and thank you for Happiness. Wow, 5 hours of talk. We didn't know if people would sign on for 5 hours, Happiness, but I'm always happy to share it with you later as well. But thank you all, and I'm ready for chat, and let's bring Mike back in. Michael at the other Michael Jackson, I'll type that in for you now as well. But what an absolute pleasure to be able to present that for you. Thank you, guys, and thank you for your comments.
So, Michael, a big round of applause. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you so much. There's the address. Wow. I need some water now. Goodness me. David, we've done the moonwalking thing before. Sorry, mate. You're too late.
Cool. So let's see some more emojis in there. Just some clapping hands, please. Thank you very much. That was a great inspirational topic that you've covered, Michael. And
Thank
you know, you touched on agility. In your experience in the past few months, what has stood out for you in terms of companies, governments, maybe it's a mixture of both, that have really just stood out for you in the way that they've adapted to this the situation we find ourselves in?
I think there have been a number of things. I've been out of my house a couple of times. I'm in Joburg at the moment, although I do travel around the world a hell of a lot. So I'm stuck here for lockdown in Joburg. And there's a thing that takes place on the William Nicol off-ramp, which is a big interchange near where I stay. And it's the Chinese influence. You know, if you want to buy some Chinese goods, whatever's the flavor of the month or of the moment, or just of whatever it is, go to the William Nicol off-ramp. It was immediate that the guys selling on the William Nicol off-ramp defied all lockdown regulations and turned up selling you face masks. You know, that's how quickly the Chinese market was agile and ready to change around completely. And I think that a lot of people have sat and struggled and looked at themselves and thought, wow, this is hard, this is difficult, it takes me out of my comfort zone. I always thought I was technologically savvy. I'm not so technologically savvy right now. You know, they're asking me to work from home, which I didn't like at first, but now I quite enjoy because I'm not sitting in the traffic. I'm wasting all that fuel and time and effort and all those burning hours that are just wasted. I'm actually starting to enjoy this more, but I'm still trying to learn, say the average people, I think, exactly how I can do this better. And that's why we're hearing phrases like Zoom fatigue. It's hard to watch one of these all day and to stare at a screen, particularly if you're doing it on a handset, let alone a tablet or a privilege of a desktop that I have with me at home now. But people can change, and that's the underlying message from it. Ernest, you've got chronic Zoom fatigue, mate, because you're watching the wrong stuff, right? It's bizarre. I mean, I just think that we can adapt, and we must adapt, and we're going to adapt. What's going to happen dramatically is that the world is going to be different. It might be that companies start saying to employees, let's stagger working hours. Let's get you into the office for meetings or compact stuff that we need to get together on. And I think for people like myself in the eventing industry in particular, I think I might be speaking a lot more at companies than I will be in large scale events into the future. There is a massive miss of what Bobette is saying now about waiting to interact with other human beings. We want our coffee shop back. We want the annual conference back, or we want the ability to go to work and chat with our colleagues, because it's a lonely place to be when you're working out on your own. But it will change. It'll be different to the ways we've ever done it before. And Paul's talking about the conference goodies. I think it's everybody wants those free USB sticks. Sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
And I suppose to Bobette's point is we need that human contact. Even if it's in a virtual format, how do you ensure that it's still a open, honest, and relatable conversation? It's not just being fed information and not really, interacting with people, even though it's not the same. At least there is some level of that interaction. I have a question.
Just before you do, I was going to say, if I may briefly, that we are social creatures. Humans are social. We need that interface with other beings from our species, and we like it and we enjoy it. But Zoom fatigue, by the way, that Ernest was talking about earlier was, it's not what we're doing now. Here we're engaging. There's Lydia, Veronica, Ernest, Michaela, Bobette talking on the screen. And I think that the key to that is what we're doing now. More interaction on Zoom will make it less fatiguing. And Ernest back there saying the personal interaction won't go away, and people are agreeing with that. Asanda, nice to have you agreeing on the subject. I think what's going to happen more and more with platforms like your own, you're going to be successful within it because you know that you're setting up that mutual discussion, even though we're separated and we aren't there in 3D. So, all credit to what you're doing, Mike, with you and your team. I think you're doing some cool stuff. It just needs to be more involving. But sorry, you had another question.
No, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And, seeing the industry adapt as quickly as they have has really been inspiring. I think as event managers and humans in general, we are quick to adapt, but, it just needs that little bit of a showcase to see that, hey, you can do it. It's not going to be all that bad. A question before I get into the questions posed from the audience, what are your thoughts on the future of events in terms of hybrid events? That's a phrase that's being thrown around quite often, where you've got a smaller audience and then a bigger online component. What are your thoughts and takes on that?
Well, staying with what I said about humans being social creatures, I think that it's going to be quite significant if we do have a mix of virtual eventing with some live and some virtual platform coming through. People will need to focus more on what we've just discussed, that aspect of saying, we need a lot more interactivity to go through it. I'm working with a couple of clients at the moment where I'm going to be speaking at conferences for them virtually like this, or from a studio where we're actually going to bring in the rest of the company who are presenting. Because often you find that the MD, the CEO, HR director, bless him or her, the financial director in particular, are all pretty crap at presenting. And that's why they used to have professional speakers in, because, at least a professional speaker would kind of lift the quality of it a bit. But all it is just allowing people to talk more. I think that, one of the most disappointing things I've seen in recent times is the local news. I tend to watch global news for a global perspective and pick and choose at local news just a fraction. I've been watching a lot more of the local news channels and listening to a lot more news channels and find them very, very disappointing. There's no engagement in there whatsoever. It's just, this party political stuff that's flavored to whatever line they like thrown out, and it's boring. Are they surprised that people aren't watching it? If they were getting real people involved, like conferences do, it would be a whole bunch better, but they're not doing it terribly well. True.
And I think it's also focusing on, the negative with, every one count or two counts. It's not really focusing on the broader picture. So very true. And Michael, we've got some questions from the audience that I'd like to pose. So Ernest is asking, do you think it's too early for businesses in the tourism, hospitality, and events industry to look at other revenue streams that are different to their current core business? Or should we sit tight and ride the wave for now? He's interested to hear your take on this.
I think we must look for other revenue streams, but also ride the wave to a certain extent. We've got to move into a situation where we're keeping people engaged. So if you're in tourism, hospitality, or events, keep people engaged. One of the best things I ever saw was tint swallow. And I'll type it up because it's a funny word to say. Some people might not get it. Go and have a look online at Tint Swallow Safari Lodge. They were the first people out in the tourism business. I've put it into the chat box there. They were the first people out in the tourism business to do a virtual game drive. They said, look, we know you're on lockdown. We've got our staff. They're stuck in the Manuletti Game Reserve where you can't go. We know that you're Zoom fatigued out. Here's a thing we'd like to suggest that you do. Go grab a cup of coffee, grab a glass of water, take a 10-minute break, and come and watch a virtual game drive. Their first day on Facebook, they got 100,000 downloads, over 100,000. Now that's doing something different for Ernest's question. They're still sticking to their core, but they'd never been able to buy a campaign being a small game reserve at that level that would have given you 100,000 people. They understood who put those, how to put things in front of people that people wanted. People told them they were missing the game reserve. Now they'll go back to their core business. But what are we doing in eventing right now that makes it different? I've done more webinars in the last couple of months than I have in a year. We're getting used to it, but we need to keep getting it better, which is why, again, Mike, I'm glad you're driving the scenario. I mean, it is tough, and some people will lose their jobs. I passed Gallagher Estate the other day driving up to a TV studio where, yes, they have been very on social media, Raquel, yes, they have. They've been driving it hard. But I drove past Gallagher Estates locked up, except Gallagher Estates have turned themselves into an online bottle store. Now, whoa, that's kind of different. I never expected that in my life. So maybe they're trying to keep things ticking over. What do people want? What do people need? How do we modify our own behavior? There's no way that we can be wedded to a job or an industry or anything without change taking place. We've got to make ourselves different and work on new things. It's not easy. If it was easy, we'd all bloody be doing it, Ernest. But you need to think, and the best place to think is by understanding what people, what markets, what people around you want and need right now. I'm not saying you've got to go and be totally drastic. You don't have to drop everything and knit masks. But, there are ways of bringing your business out that can be presented differently to your audience. The need for events and conferencing is based on communication. How do we modify our communication best is what I'd suggest.
Very true. Thank you for that. Another question, Michael, from Jenna. She's asking, what do you think 2021 will look like post-COVID for the events industry, but also business in South Africa in general? I think just adding on to Ernest's take and the broader business industry.
I think the events industry itself, people in the industry are clamoring to get back out. I think the audience are a little bit more reluctant. I think it's going to be socially distanced. I think it's going to be sanitized up the kazoo. I think we're going to have to think very differently. We might be buying a bigger venue to put fewer people in, but we need that engagement. Happiness, you're absolutely right, saying engagement is best. And I think all business is going to have to operate that way. Even going to the shops is going to be different. You won't have what we used to have. I'm dying for live football to take place again with a crowd rather than crowd noises filled in. And thank you for the applause that you threw at me virtually as well. I did quite appreciate it, but I'm a Man United fan. I can't stand the thought of Liverpool winning the league, but I'm glad they're doing it in front of no fans because I'm jealous. But seriously, I think that business will look different. people are nervous, people are scared. The older they are in your target market, the more fearful they are. The younger they are, the more appropriate. Now, look at all these Liverpool fans coming out of the cis on you. I think that the younger you are, you're more adaptable. The older you are, you're less adaptable. Look into your target market. You know, who are you dealing with? You know, plane travel right now is almost impossible. It'll come back. British Airways are talking of flying to London from Joburg again, middle of July, I think. So it will come back, but it's going to be different. You're going to wear a mask all the way through. Some things are going to have to happen. I see Raquel's a United fan. That's awesome. Well done, Raquel. Sorry, I got sidetracked on those. And she's asking the next question. Is that correct, Mike? Sorry.
Yeah, so just maybe to add on to the sporting point, this is from Mari, and we'll get to Raquel's question shortly. What are your thoughts on the future of sporting events such as marathons, cycle races, rugby games? See the Comrades Marathon are actually doing a virtual race and getting everyone to run a 5K virtually. But what do you think the future of sporting events will be?
They'll have to come back again because we're social creatures. And it's not just the fact that we're social, they're done because of money. You know, the Olympics will take place coming up fairly shortly in another year's time. They will not delay it again. The World Cup in Qatar, I saw something on the news the other night, is definitely going to take place. It's going to have to come back because there's too much money involved and too many people involved. Will it look different? You know, will you have the seat next to you empty? I mean, look, you know, Manchester City fans always have an empty seat next to them, so it's going to look the same for Man City fans. But seriously, you know, it's going to have to come back in very different ways. But the money's too great to avoid it. It's going to have to come. Yeah.
And just two questions, just cognizant of time. So one question from Raquel. She's asking, do you think that events will be as they were before all of this? And do we need to accept that things will never be the same again?
We do need to accept that things will never be the same, and events, it'll take a long, long time. We're talking of a 5-year recovery. You know, when you look back at, they call it a black swan event, the arrival of the coronavirus, a sudden, unexpected event that destabilizes and refocuses everything at once. We had the financial crash before 9/11, when the world markets collapsed in the late 1990s. Took 1.5 years to recover from that. The more recent financial crash of 2008 took 2.5 years to recover from. They were small events by comparison to what we find ourselves in now. It's going to be 2025 before any sense of what we knew as normal may have the opportunity of fully coming back. But then again, between now and 2025, a new normal may emerge that we'll never ever think of going back to what we had previously. So it's up to us in the industry to create and set those new standards. You know, once you got color film, you never went back to black and white. You know, one person in a million might like to shoot in black and white photography, but we all want full color. You know, as we roll and develop, we're going to change. And I think that we cannot get stuck in a mindset from the past.
Agreed, and that's just evolution, and innovation comes from that as well. So yes, very true. In terms of just one more question before we carry on with the presentation, how confident are you with technology or the technology stability in order for us to do virtual events? What's your take?
Yeah, I was looking at the South African internet speed. I think we suffer dramatically. You know, we can get a whole bunch more. My son works as a data analyst in Austria, and he moans every time we get hold of each other on a virtual chat because he says, "Oh, your quality is so poor." But he's just now become almost Austrian German, which is a bit harsh. I think we're changing it. You know, and if you look up Starlink at the moment with Elon Musk's satellites, I was out the other night freezing my butt off in Joburg. Just after 6 o'clock, looking southeast to southwest. Go onto Starlink. They'll tell you when those Elon Musk satellites are coming over from SpaceX. And he's putting up 800, I think it is, or 1,200 constant satellites that will improve internet connectivity across not only Africa, but parts of Asia and India that are really struggling with it as well. And I think that, you know, there's a good old South African boy doing great things, not only putting people into the space station, but putting up these satellites on Starlink that are just going to change connectivity forever. We're never going back to black and white television. Let's look at it that way. We're only going to get bigger from here.
Great. Michael, it's really been a pleasure. Known you for many years, and it's really, truly an honor to have you join us for this webinar series. Really look forward to connecting with you in the future, and I really hope all the best for the next foreseeable future, but we'll chat before then.
Thank you, Mike, so much, and I really appreciate being on the Flock platform with you. It's just a really cool thing to do. Michael at theothermichaeljackson.com. If anybody wants that deck, there are extended slides in that deck. I gave you an abbreviated version of it. It's a brand new presentation. I've been developing it for post-COVID. Only too happy to share it with anyone who wants it. So drop me a mail. Just beware, I use a spam server. With a name like Michael Jackson, Baudet was the first person to point that out. I've got to use a spam filter service in the States. My number's on my website, The Other Michael Jackson. All my links are there. And I have Chinese people phoning me at 3 in the morning going, Michael Jackson, you sing me song. And I hate it all. So I use a spam server. It'll send you a one-word challenge. Type that in so it knows you're not a bot. And I'll take your mail through from there. But it's dead easy. Happy to chat with any of you at any time as well.
Perfect, and we'll also make that available in the app that we've had for this webinar. So the app does have a lot of great resources along with the virtual events playbook. So if you do want Michael's presentation as well as the virtual event playbook packed with helpful tips and goodies, please let us know. And just fill out the survey. Veronica will put the survey link in the chat, and just complete it from there and put in your details, and we'll send you that information. Thanks again, sir.
Tremendous. Thank you very much indeed, guys. A real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Great, guys. So we're going to bring Kelly onto stage and then carry on with the tips and tricks that Kelly's prepared. And then we'll announce the webinar winner. Before we do that, I would like to just remind everyone, hey there, Kelly.
Hi there, Mike. How you doing?
Great, great. Just to remind everyone that we are running another webinar on the 24th. The format's going to be slightly different. There is reserved space, so spacing is limited. We're actually going to go into a fully virtual environment. You don't need VR headsets. You're going to go into, you can access it via your laptop or desktop through your browser. So stay tuned to our social media spaces and look out for the invite. It's going to be really spectacular. It's just a very different way. As Mpo and the guys mentioned, yes, we're trying to level up, really trying. Cool. So Kelly, thank you very much for the brief intro earlier on. Just going to share my screen and then we can go through the tips and tricks. So I know that you've been chatting to a lot of people, and as Michael says, it's all about those relationships and just making sure that people know that we're here to listen to them as well.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Mike, and thanks, Michael. That was really interesting, and certainly a lot of points to think about there as well. We've been in contact with people across the industry, since this whole thing began as well. And it was actually really interesting to look at that curve. And just I was just thinking the amount of phone calls I've had and picturing people at different stages of that curve as we've come to where we are today. The initial denial was certainly a phase. People still hoping to put on their major events. In Sandton Convention Center at the end of May. And, then certainly a stage where, no one really knew what was happening. And, we were sort of trying to figure it out ourselves as well. And, to where we are now, a point of acceptance. And, it certainly is at that point now where people are, they've realized we are here and we want to do something, and how do we do it? Exactly that's means the point of these as well is to share what we've learned and take this forward and actually put something on during these times. Sure, 5 years sounds like a long time. I might be doing it for a while. But my tips and tricks for this week are of course about exactly how to promote your virtual events. Now that people are getting behind the idea and they actually want to do something, there's different strategies and different ways to do it now as well. So I'm just going to run through a couple of ideas that we've had, and certainly how we think how to promote your event, and it might work for yours as well. Yeah, first off, of course, especially in the age of advertising, we don't have a venue to back up our event now, an amazing place to go host it. So, we've got to have really amazing landing pages and a really attention-grabbing website. That's, people need to go on there and be wowed. They want to join, even if it's just for a couple of hours onto a virtual event, they want to see what it's all about. So, have your multimedia on there, have really really promote the content well on the page and make it look like, even if it is a webinar, that's something that they get excited about. Yeah, and with that, of course, having looking a bit more into the tech side of it, and having an online presence, just using specific keywords within your page, within your advertising, that's you're coming up in Google searches, boost your search potential online. People might be looking for information on certain things. I'm sure people are looking all over on how to run virtual events, and mention those type of words, those attention grabbing words in your content as well. And of course, make the most of email marketing. It's certainly something that with all our pages we get right behind the communication. Anyone joining this event today would have got lots of emails, got text right up until 5 minutes before the event. Everyone likes to join a Zoom call on the minute, and they've they've forgotten which link to click. So exactly that. We send out communication right up until the minute, and make your emails look exciting. Especially now there's a lot of budget we're not spending on print media and doing up a venue. All of that can be funneled into creating great looking marketing media, emails, and so forth. And of course, with that, like exactly when you are emailing and getting out the information on your event, give people a sneak peek of what to expect. Exactly that. We can't use a venue to say, great, we're going to be at Sun City for this one. Let's tell them that we're going to have Michael Jackson on this week. Get them excited about it. Give them a sneak peek of the content, what they can expect. And essentially that's why people are joining events these days. It really is all about the content now. Another thing to consider, of course, is getting your team to leverage your social media across multiple platforms. If you're using LinkedIn, repost things on LinkedIn. Get right into Facebook, even though it's more at the social sense, and get into Twitter. You want to use as many platforms as possible to communicate your events. Get the word out there, repost things, and get people commenting on it as well. Hopefully they reshare it to their friends, and I think a lot of the time, there's it's a hidden resource as well. Not everyone uses social media as much as they should, and certainly now that everyone's at home, there's not much else to look at. Social media is a good platform to start with. Great. Think about asking your sponsors and your partners to spread the word for your event. It's firstly, it's a great advertising opportunity for them to have, a section of your show, and get them involved. If they want their logo or a short blurb about their business, said in your event, get them to spread the word about what you're putting on. And of course, if just as we've had, I'm sure Michael's been doing this week, ask for self-promotion from your speakers. They're part of your show. Exactly that. Michael's a well-known chap. I thought I saw over 2,700 conferences. Amazing. A lot of people know him. Exactly that. Get him to talk about your event. Get whoever's part of your show to promote it as well. Very simple things, especially in these times. Word of mouth. Tell your friends about it. Tell your family about it, and get just people talking about your event and before it actually begins. Another great thing to do, especially if you've done a virtual event in the past, is start building some case studies and start building some promotional content. A great video of snippets of what they can expect. Some people still know what a virtual event is, and certainly I don't think we really have seen the best of them yet. And putting together a great promotional video on what they can expect to see, and maybe snippets of what you've put on already. People are more inclined to actually sign up and register, keen to see what's coming for the next one. Yeah, of course, as I mentioned already, constant communication with your attendees, and this is done through multiple platforms. Yeah, I mean, we're texting out, we're sending out WhatsApps, we're sending out emailers, and of course, yeah, you can even have a mobile app for your event. A great way to get people interested, get them excited to download something new. Everyone's got a smartphone these days, and yeah, we're downloading another app for the event. It doesn't just have to be for one event. You can use it for multiple events in future. And through that, one of the best features on there is the push notifications. Nice way to send rich text to all the attendees of the event, and yeah, get them excited about what they can expect to see, for what's coming up this week, and what updates there are. New content, new speakers. Especially if you do it early enough, yeah, you can really build a following before the event gets going. Yeah,
Awesome.
Great. Of course, get people excited to join the event through promotions. Mike, he's already mentioned one earlier. We've got a spa giveaway as well, and yeah, keep them interested, and you can take it from there. Excellent. Great, Mike. Thanks so much. That's the tips and tricks for this week.
That's great, Kelly. And just in terms of people wanting to find out a little bit more about us, if you'd like to chat about the app and the platform a little bit, just so that people know how to get in contact with us.
Yeah, certainly. So I mean, everything that we've seen here today and everything that we're doing in this webinar, we've got polls going. We're really trying to show what you can show off during a virtual event. So yeah, there's you'll see what's appeared at the bottom of the screen now, a get in contact with us button. You can click there if you are keen for a demo to see how we can facilitate and host your virtual events. Click that get in contact button, fill out your details for us, and yeah, either myself or Mike will give you a call and follow up. Yeah, essentially, there's lots of different platforms here. We're using Crowdcast for this webinar. We've got a couple of other components we're using to host conferences, expos, and yeah, really facilitate any type of events. And we're more than happy to get on a Zoom call with you, show you what we've got, and see how we can assist.
Yeah, thank you. I think we will follow on with these webinar series. We're looking at hosting them once a month, but then going into more practical steps as well. But Ernest, thank you very much for your kind words to Kelly. He's saying that you should have a webinar all to yourself, just on tips and tricks.
Thanks, Ernest. We'll keep it fresh every 2 weeks.
So yes, if you look in the virtual events playbook, follow our social media, schedule a demo with us. We're happy to provide some practical advice as well. So yes, Kelly, thank you so much. We're going to run through things. I know that we're 5 minutes over, and then we're going to be bringing Veronica on to let us know who the competition winner is of that 1,000 Rand spa voucher. Thanks so much, Kelly.
Thanks, Mike. Cheers, thanks, guys.
Cheers. Right, guys, so just to go through the presentation very quickly, essentially there is a virtual event checklist. In that virtual event checklist, you'll see this checklist in the virtual events playbook. So if you haven't downloaded it already, it is in the mobile app. It is available there. Alternatively, do let us know that you do want it, and we will email it to you along with a recording of this webinar. We'll just make sure that the sound issues are sorted. Great, then just in terms of adding on to Kelly's tips and tricks, I can't stress the amount of times we've done rehearsals. So really do encourage the rehearsals ahead of time, so making sure that any last minute glitches can be fixed. It is unavoidable, so when you're at the live event, explain to the audience that it's something new that you're trying, so definitely just let them know, be open and honest. Again, there's various platforms that you can use. There's webinar platforms, virtual event platforms, virtual reality platforms. They all do various functions. But please do speak to us to see how we can integrate with our platform to these platforms. As mentioned, the next webinar that we're hosting is going to be similar to this. We're going to be in an auditorium, and you're going to have your own avatar that you'd be able to design. So really looking forward to that. Right, guys, so if you do want to get in touch with us, you can reach out to us over here. Please do email us, follow us on social media platforms. We're going to bring on Veronica. So Veronica, do you have the winner of this week's webinar? So just searching for Veronica, and I shall bring her onto stage. Okay. So guys, please do let us know how you've found this this webinar. Really, really great to have you guys join us. Hey, Veronica.
Hi, Mike. How's everyone doing? Yeah, we've had so many of you engage with us. It's been such a wonderful session. Thank you, Michael Jackson, again, for all those insightful tips. And Kelly, I see Happiness commented Kelly's tips and tricks webinar. That would be great. Definitely get into more detail there. So we've had a lot of you engage with us. So here we go. Get a drum roll, please, in the comment section. Clap hands. We're almost ready for it.
Okay, let's. I want to see those emojis, guys. Let's get those emojis going.
Cool.
Who is our winner this week of the 1,000 Rand Spa Voucher?
Are you guys able to see?
We are focusing on your screen right now.
Drum roll. Congratulations, Mpo Mashbela.
Mpo, well done, Mpo. That's amazing. So Mpo, you win yourself a 1,000 Rand Spa Voucher. Congratulations. The team will be in contact for you to just to get your details and get that across to you, as well as a 500 Rand donation to a charity of your choice. So congratulations again, Mpo. And then we're also going to let you know how you can win that 500 Rand shopping voucher from All About Food. Please stay posted to our social media platforms. That's where we're going to be hosting that competition. Guys, there's also one thing we didn't mention is that there's a 10,000 Rand Flock platform software voucher. You can win that by completing the post-event survey and then booking a demo with us, and we'll be releasing the winner in the next week. So stay tuned for the next webinar. Again, thank you so much, everyone. It's really been a pleasure to have you all. Stay safe and see you at the next webinar. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Keep warm.